Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Media Made Me here on the Brazilian Dragon Podcast Network. I am Felipe, the titular Brazilian Dragon, and today I am joined by comedian, actor, writer, sketch comic, multi-hyphenate slashy Jordan Katcher. Jordan, how are you doing?
I am swell and dandy. How about yourself, Felipe?
I am doing well, better now that I'm chatting with you.
Ah,
You always
that's
brighten
sweet.
my day
Oh,
whenever I
thanks,
see
bud.
you at work.
I do
Jordan.
try. That's the goal.
Yes. And how would you like to introduce yourself to the audience of the Brazilian Dragon podcast?
I think you did a pretty good job. I think multi-hyphenate is the way to go when I'm like, I don't want to talk about all these things about
Yeah.
myself. I'm just a lot of things. But yeah, I do comedy, I do acting, I write, I do voiceover, I direct sometimes. I'll edit it.
Podcaster?
I'm a podcaster, true crime, false crime. Check it out, the aftermath. Dead time stories. We're all over the place. Yeah, I'd say those are probably the big
Exercise
hits.
enthusiast?
I am an exercise enthusiast. I'm not a professional exercise enthusiast, and I'm not an influencer, but I like to do it. It feels
Yes.
good.
Fan of the Aquafina scuttlebutt rap? No.
Of course,
Yeah.
absolutely, always.
That
Yeah, give me all that Lin Manuel Miranda goodness. I am always all about it.
Yeah, that was a reference to the pre-show. But Jordan, thank you for joining me. I'm excited to dive deep. I mean, we've had similar conversations in the workplace about like your inspirations, your influences, your media, uh, your connection to media and how it shaped you. But I'm
Mhm.
excited to dig in on the microphone and get to know
Yeah.
you better and introduce you to the anyone who's listening to this or watching this video, to anyone in the RHAP world that's like, who's this Jordan Catcher guy that
Oh, you're
they're
gonna
friends with
know.
me? You're gonna know everything. We
Mhm.
buried the lead star of one of my favorite shows, Glee, as a Dalton Academy lacrosse player.
Always, with the spoon in hand, just laxing it up, bro. Just laxing it
Did
up.
you play lax growing up?
No, not like on a team.
No.
I would play it casually with my friends. I had a stick, but I didn't like play, you
Yeah.
know. It was like my parents never let me do the like very violent sports. They were like, no lacrosse, no hockey, no football. You're too sensitive. You're a fragile little boy. You're not gonna go and play those violent sports.
Is that your mom impression?
That
Impression
is
of you?
nowhere near what my actual parents, either of them, sound like at all. But I feel like it's just when you vaguely think of like an East Coast parent, that's just like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's yeah.
No.
If you're of the Jewish persuasion, that's what everybody subconsciously thinks our parents sound like. No, that's not actually what they sound like. Not mine, at
Uh,
least.
who would play your parents in a movie about your life?
Oh, I have thought about this so many times. Um, I think so. Like, there's ones who I feel like uh I look like personally, and like that would be a good casting just visually. But then I think like there's people who would just be like good at playing the character if I wrote it like them. I think Matthew Perry would
Ooh.
absolutely destroy the role of my father. He would be so good. It would be wonderful. And then for my mom, I go back and forth with a couple different people, but I think that Melissa McCarthy is where I
Mm,
land usually. So I think
love
Melissa
it.
McCarthy and Matthew Perry are like the go-tos for my mom and dad. And then if we're gonna get my sister into the mix, I go Abby Jacobson.
Okay, and then would you play yourself, or do you have someone that would play you?
What do you mean? Of course I'm gonna play myself. Well, you gotta give yourself the opportunities. Nobody's making the opportunities for you.
Love it.
Even
I,
in hypothetical situations, I'm casting myself.
having never seen a photo of your sister, I could definitely see Abby Jacobson playing her.
She looks like a lot like my sister. It's very accurate.
And then you would be 1 degree of separation from the Lego Ninjago movie. Like,
Who's the degree of separation in that
she's
bunch?
she's one of the voice actresses in the
Is
Lego.
she really? She's in
I,
Lego Ninjago. I love when I go on somebody's IMDb page and I see a credit that I'm like, that makes no sense.
yeah. Hopefully, one day we both have credits like that.
Hey, that'd be cool. Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be sweet?
But no, that's a very difficult question because it's like, who do you want to be like your parents? Who would be good at it? I've actually never thought about who would play my brother. That's actually no, I have it immediately. But
Who do you got? What's your family cast?
So my dad would be Oscar Isaac, I think. I
Hard
would
to go
love it.
wrong.
I mean, it's like dream casting, right? My mom, Justina Machado, from
Mm,
One Day at a Time. But then it
hmm
would be like a little insular because like my brother would be the son from One Day at a Time. I gotta look his name up. I think it's what Marcel something. Not Marcel Spears. He's in the neighborhood.
I love it when
Marcel
that happens, though. When
Marcel
people who
Ruiz.
work, Marcel Ruiz. I love it
Yeah.
when people who work on other projects together do another project because you're
Mhm.
like, your brain's like, ooh, a little treat. I know where these
Yeah.
people have been together before.
Like it's a modern day Rat Pack.
It
Yeah.
is a modern day Rat Pack, and shouldn't we all strive to be a modern day Rat Pack?
We should. But yeah, Jordan. So you're an East Coast boy from the Jersey,
From the
um,
Joys.
and you moved out to LA when you were 20, 21 ish, maybe
19.
19. Silly
Yeah.
me.
Silly you, silly me, moving across the country at 19 years old. That's a silly thing to do.
But what were your like earliest memories with the media? And the media can be a broad topic. It can be movies, TV, of course, but it could be books, music, podcasts, computer games. I don't know.
Oh, computer games definitely sends me to a specific place. I definitely remember there I forget what it was called, but it was my sister's game. It definitely I was not in the right demographic to be playing it,
And your
but it
sister's
was
older, right?
like yeah, my
Yeah.
sister's a few years older than me, and it was just this computer game. It had a purple disc, and it was about like a girls' soccer team, and it was one of those like click through stories where like you would like and like be one side of the conversation, and then you would like do a mini game, and sometimes the mini game was like playing soccer, but then it was also like solving mysteries. I have zero recollection of what the actual name of this game
Is it the
was, but
Starfire Soccer Challenge?
it is the Starfire Soccer Challenge. That's
Literally
what.
the magic of the internet. I googled purple disc soccer girl team computer game and it came
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, so I definitely was not who they intended to be playing that game, but boy, was I about it. But that was obviously a little bit later on. But then, like earlier than that, I mean, it was definitely like Sesame Street was a big one. The Muppets were big for sure. Both of my parents are big music fans, and so music was always really important in our house. I definitely got a good music education when I was very young. I was listening to Bruce Springsteen probably before I could walk, as most New Jerseyans should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those were kind of like the very early ones. Oh, and then I also remember my mom used to read to us most nights, but she wouldn't like we did Dr. Seuss and stuff when I was younger, but she read A Wrinkle in Time to us often. Like that was a family go-to, and so I've got a sweet spot for A Wrinkle in Time. But Dr. Seuss was also absolutely massive. And only recently did I find out that he's not such a great guy, which is unfortunate. But isn't that so much the way with all of these wonderful people that we love the art that they make, and then we grow up and then we're like, oh no, they're
They
bad?
either die or they
Well,
are awful. Yeah.
yeah.
Or sometimes both. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. You can die and be an awful person.
So two quick follow-ups. We talked in the pre-show about Suits, and there was one line that might have offended you. So maybe this is a detracting statement for why you should watch Suits. But one of the characters, Harvey, called Bruce Springsteen an octogenarian in 2011. Homeboy's not even 70 now, is he?
I think he is like just eking into his 70s. I think he's probably like 68 now. So he's right up there. But yeah, I mean, the thing about Bruce and New Jersey in general, easy targets. Like it's just people love to make fun of New Jersey, and Bruce is kind of, he's the boss. He's the spokesman for a very specific subset of New Jersey. It's him and John Bon Jovi for a long time were like what you think before the Jersey Shore. It was like you think of Bon Jovi, you think of Bruce Springsteen. And so it's okay. They're punching down. He's the boss, baby. You got to make fun of the boss.
And follow up to your love of A Wrinkle in Time. Did you end up watching the Ava DuVernay 2018 movie?
I didn't do it.
You
I
couldn't.
didn't do it. I just have like, I just like, I have such fond memories of like the version that my mom would create for us that I was like, you know what? I I don't think I need to revisit this. Maybe one day. I wouldn't, if somebody was like, hey, let's watch this, I wouldn't
In the
be
break room?
opposed to it. Yeah, if somebody puts it on in the break, I don't have much of a choice if somebody puts it on the break room.
Were
I've
you
never
there
touched
yesterday
the
when they
remote.
put on Cats?
I heard that Cats came on, but it came on. I was there when Critters was on. That we were watching Critters.
Yeah, we
And
did
then
a
so we
Critters
went
Cats
from,
double feature.
yeah, it was the Critters Cats double feature. Yeah.
Now, do your parents come from a performing background as well? Did your mom do funny voices in Wrinkle in Time?
She did, but she doesn't really come from a performing background. She is a teacher, though, so I think that definitely kind of like plays into how she knows how to entertain four kids as she's kind of educating them. But she wasn't really a performer. My dad, on the other hand, my dad was a musician. He was in a rock band. He actually jammed with Bruce Springsteen multiple times,
Fun.
which is just like the most New Jersey backstory ever. But he was a rock organist. And then he also was like, he never really like dipped his toes into it, but he was just such a massive stand-up comedy fan that I also got that kind of education from an early age.
Awesome. And so he's a real Jetsy Katsopoulos, rocking with some famous musicians.
Yes, absolutely.
And then Sesame Street. Who is your favorite of the Sesame Street?
I was a big Snuffy guy.
Oh yes, you did
I
mention this a
just
couple days ago.
I love Snuffy, but then obviously Cookie Monster. I think I watched you know, the VHS that they did. It was like a made for home video. It was don't Cookie Monster, don't eat the pictures.
Maybe
I wore that thing down to a nub. I literally watched that tape until it couldn't be played anymore because it's just like a let's teach kids about art thing, but it's just Cookie Monster being like, we want to eat pictures, you know? And so I just like, oh, I ate that thing up. I loved it.
Like 3-year-old Jordan tee-hee-heeing.
Oh, just rolling on the floor laughing. I adored it.
There were a couple VHS tapes that I burned through, like smash the rewind immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like for Sesame Street, there was one that they were singing on a farm. It's like an animal-based one. And then there's this cow song where Gloria the cow sings "Proud,
Mm-hmm.
proud, proud to be a cow." The lyrics as an adult, kind of genius. Like there are some.
Oh, I bet.
I've seen some TikToks recently of this incredible poetry that is Rabbit and Piglet from Winnie the Pooh having a conversation about knots.
Oh, I bet that goes deep.
It's like not like it's like.
Oh, I love a homophone. One of my favorite things in the world is a homophone. Just when words sound the same. I think English is like the dumbest language on earth. We're just a big amalgamation of all the other languages. And oftentimes, because of that, we have these stupid words that all sound the same. I feel so bad for people. It's the only language I speak fluently. And I'm so impressed by people who speak multiple languages and learn English second. Because I'm like, how? This language makes zero sense.
I need to issue a retraction. It was not Gloria the cow. It was Gladys the cow.
Thank you for clarifying that, Felipe. I appreciate that you are the kind of person that would immediately retract your statement. You're not going to wait for the trolls to come at you in the comment section. You're going to cover your bases early. Real-time fact checking.
Yes, no, I learned from the best. Rob Sesternino, always on the Google. We just need one person to at me. We don't need a whole cavalry of trolls in my DMs, in my mentions. Yeah. And to let you all know, it was Sing, Hoot, and Howl with the Sesame Street animals.
That was what it was. Hoot, and Howl.
We should put that on the break room. As well as Big Bird in China, Elmo and Grouchland.
Oh, yes. Elmo and Grouchland was a bop.
Yeah. So, and then you mentioned the Muppets. Obviously, they're cousins. Do you have a separate favorite Muppet that is not in the Sesame Street universe?
Oh, I mean, I guess it depends on what you consider in the universe or not, because like they all eventually cross over. Because there's the is it the Muppets Christmas movie when they go to Fozzie's mom's house? They go to the barn, or the farm rather, and all of them are there. So I think technically they're all in the same universe. They're all in the Hensonverse, the HCU, if you will.
But Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock characters appear in a Muppet Family Christmas.
Oh yeah, and Fraggle Rock's there too. What a crazy crossover! That was Endgame before Endgame. But I mean, it's Kermit. It's Kermit. I feel like Kermit always resonated with me, and I feel like I bring Kermit energy to the world. Like I just want to put on shows and have fun and have a good time, and I don't want people being mean to each other. And I'm a peacekeeper. So
You're a
I think
peacekeeper.
yeah, always have been. But I think Kermit's probably the number one over in there.
Yeah, but Kermit is also a little sassy boy. And I
And
feel like you can be too.
that is also a big part of me. Yeah.
You like sipping the tea, looking at yourself in the mirror. You're like,
Of course,
yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
I could also see. I wouldn't have been surprised if you said Fozzie because I feel like all stand-up comments have a little bit of Fozzie.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Fozzie is definitely the dad joke side of me, and it often comes out. It's my first inclination with any joke that I'm making is like, okay, what is the most dad joke possible that I can make here? And then in order to make it a good joke, I then have to take about 4 or 5 steps off into the distance. But Fozzie is definitely in there.
Biggest dad joke that you say on tours?
Oh, that I say on tours.
I have one that I stole from Wendy. It is.
Let me hear. What's yours?
This is a fire hazard because if you do this, I will be fired.
I stole that from you. I heard you say that one time going into stage 30, and I heard you say that, and I was like, oh, I'm taking that one.
I stole it from Wendy when I did a tour. I remembered that like 2 months before I started as an associate, and then when I did tours, I'm like, I'm taking this.
Yeah, I stole that one from you. I think that's probably the most. Actually, you know what? What's a funny little dad bit that I do is when I let people off the cart, I go, everybody can get off on the left side. And then I turn to the people that are sitting next to me and I say, except for you two, you're going to get off on the right side. Nothing personal.
Yeah.
And people love it. And I've gotten so many good responses, but it feels very much like a dad joke. Like it feels like we're piling the kids out of the minivan for soccer practice.
Mm-hmm. I also have a dad joke when I drop people off. I feel like a couple people do it, but I'm like, and I'm Porky Pig now because that's all, folks. Just like,
yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got the shtick at the end. I say, did you have a good time on tour? Oh, good. You had a good time? Well, then great. My name's Jordan. If you had a bad time, it would have been something else. And again, it's just like, oh, the high fructose corn syrup in those lines is ridiculous.
It's just the serotonin that it can give the guests. That's the reason that we get tipped at the end. It's the dad joke at the end. It's nothing about if they decided beforehand or not.
No. No.
So growing up, we talked about the Sesame Street, and then what was like, I don't know. So one of my friends, Jessica, has this ranking of children. So like the extra smalls, medium, larges, and then like your adults. So like as a small medium era, what was your bag? What TV shows, movies, media?
So I'm assuming extra small is like pre-Walking Days. And then small being like
so maybe we talked about your small and your Sesame Street.
No, I think that was more like extra small kind of stuff. Cool. So we can maybe like small. Yeah. I was definitely really big into superheroes and like actiony things. I like things that were like explosions and catching my attention. I mean, not like, I wasn't watching Die Hard when I was in preschool, but like, like the kid, like, well, that's a good point. I should have been watching Die Hard. But I think Power Rangers was big for me. And then going along with Power Rangers, Beetleborgs was really, really big. Sometimes I think I dreamed Beetleborgs because I talk to people about it sometimes and they're like, what are you talking about? There's like a Ronald McDonald looking guy. There's a Frankenstein. What do you mean? The show didn't exist, but like, I swear it's real. I hope it's real. But yeah, so Power Rangers, Beetleborgs were big. The Transformers cartoons were up there. The X-Men animated series, definitely. I think those were those kind of years, the small years, the small mediums.
So this is the first podcast that I've done where I've been able to mention that my friend Brandon is going to be on this upcoming season of Survivor. And one of the questions in the preseason that Mike Bloom likes to ask is, what celebrity or fictional character would you want to come out for a loved one's visit? And since you mentioned Power Rangers, I'll bring up his answer. They filmed right around the time that it was going to come out on Netflix this year in April. Mm-hmm. And he said that he wanted Zordon to be Zordon. As his loved one.
That's hilarious.
So just a shout out to Brandon. Just the
That's
float.
especially funny because like on Survivor, like I haven't watched the recent seasons, but like back in the day, that was like a big like family TV night thing. We did Survivor into CSI, and we like sat
Oh,
on the floor and we ate Chinese food. It was such a good double feature. But the reason I find Zordon being your loved one so funny is because like one of the most like emotional moments of having a loved one there to visit is like, oh, you get to hug them. Because like there's no like physical, well, not no, but there's less physical intimacy when you're on Survivor. And so you get to hug your loved one. But to have Zordon, it's presumably the floating head version of him and not the physical manifestation. So you just
yeah.
have a floating head being like, hello, how has your time on the island been? That's hilarious.
Chinese food in Survivor probably hits. I've done it a couple times. I usually do poke in
Ooh, so
Survivor.
good. That'll
But
do it.
yeah, but
Poke's great, especially if you've got an island season. You know, you're definitely you feel like you're in the vibe. You know, like I caught this poke.
yeah, I caught the salmon. It was on
Yeah,
me. Um, but so you love action stuff. Who is your favorite superhero?
Batman. Always
Batman.
Batman. I've
Batman.
always been like a Batman and Raphael type. It's funny because like I'm a very like outgoing, bubbly, kind person, but on the inside I'm just this like dark, brooding, like
Man of
Batman
mystery.
of a guy. Yeah, just like Raphael brooding in the shadows, but it was always Batman. I just like I there was the brooding aspect definitely hit with me, but then it was also like kind of I think the biggest thing was the like the willpower of Batman was big for me because I was like, oh, like this dude is like he's rich, obviously, and that can buy you a lot of things, but he's just a human being and he just wants it really, really bad, and it being justice.
Now, what's your quintessential childhood Batman? Not your favorite Batman, but like, what's the one? Like, is it the Joel Schumacher movies? Is that the one that like, just thinking of your
Um,
age demo, or is
I
it like the
I
cartoons?
mean, I think it was more the cartoons. It was definitely the 90s Batman cartoons. It was Kevin Conroy was
Nice.
like
Rest in peace.
the Batman. Yeah, RIP. He was definitely the Batman until Christian Bale came along. I did, by the way, I know it gets a lot of flack. I loved the George Clooney Batman. It's
It's
like
camp.
it's camp. And I saw an article about it one time and they were like, yeah, if you like go into this expecting like the Hollywood Batman movie that you wanted to see when you heard this was going to come out, it maybe is not going to live up to your expectations. But if you watch it like with the expectations of watching like a lucha movie, like a luchador movie, it's going to be incredible. It's like just change your expectations a little bit. But I
Yeah.
loved it. I loved all that campy stuff because it felt like something I would imagine while I was like playing with my Batman toys. I was a big toy kid. And
You
so
were a toy
like
kid.
oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah. And I would do like before they ever had crossovers, I would do a lot of Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were always like messing around together. They just kind of like seemed thematically like they would belong together.
No, no, I did crossovers myself as well. I was Kingdom Hearts before Kingdom Hearts because I had this toy set. It was like four little action figures or like Lego figures, basically, of Tarzan, Hercules, Peter Pan, and Aladdin. And I would have them cross
Mm,
over and they're different, like, and hang out with each other. Um,
that's awesome.
yeah. And also, I feel like every little boy wanted to be Spider Man, Batman, or Superman. Those are like the big three. And I was a
Those
Spider
are
Man
definitely
kid,
the big three. And I
but
think it says a lot about each of the kids. Like when you know which one they like, it's like they were always the similar type of kids.
yeah, I was definitely a Spider-Man kid, but I also grew up more with the Tobey Maguire movies.
Hmm.
I also was a big Johnny Storm kid. Like I loved the Fantastic Four movies and like the cartoons, and I was like Johnny Storm. I resonated with him because he was just like a ball of energy, and I feel like I can relate to that
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. I don't know. I don't know if it was my parents picking up on the fact that I preferred DC over Marvel or if they only knew about DC, but I'm thinking back on all my toys and like I didn't have a single Marvel action
yeah.
figure. They were all DC, and I also only exclusively read DC comics. Like I can't think of ever as a kid reading a Marvel comic. It was all DC all the time.
See, I wasn't a big comic kid, except for like Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes. Like that's was the comic
But
strips
not
that I
like
read.
superhero comics.
Yeah, no, it was like more of like I watched some superhero stuff, and then like in middle school, high school, I was like after the first Avengers movie, I was like, I'm too cool for this. And then my brother got really into Marvel. He's 6 years younger than me. I was like, wasting your time. And then
Yeah.
like Endgame came out. Well, Black Panther. I thought Infinity War was overhyped. I still think that. Maybe like don't cancel me. Um,
No,
it's just a
I
2 hour
get you.
fight.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's good. Like I can, but like I prefer Endgame because I feel like there's more story there. But
Well, of course, Infinity War was just existing to set up Endgame.
yeah.
That's also, by the way, if we want to talk about takes that might get us canceled, that's how I felt about the most recent Spider-Verse movie. I don't get me wrong, gorgeous, incredible, truly a work of art. The performances were great, but like as we were approaching the third act, I was like, awesome, we're gonna put this team together. Everybody, we're gonna take down the baddie, and then it just kind of ended.
Yeah. See,
And I was just like, oh, this only exists to set up the third Spider-Verse movie.
I knew it was a two-parter going in, and I kind of wish I didn't because I wanted to be mad. Like that's a kind of messed up statement to say out loud, but I was like I
No, I get
wanted
it.
to because like with Infinity War I wasn't super in it, so I like knew everyone like vanished. I didn't know the context. I just like assumed everyone died. Um,
Yeah.
and then well, Endgame also then like my friend convinced me to go to an open night, and I had so much fun. And then Spider-Man: Far From Home is the reason why I like went and like during the pandemic watched everything. So like Spider-Man brings me back to the superhero
Yep.
stuff. But
Well,
now,
and it was, I mean, it was kind of like that and the X-Men movie were like very much the beginning of that craze. There is
yeah.
one superhero franchise that totally missed the boat by like literally by like 6 months. It was
Blade.
called Mystery Men.
Oh
Have you seen Mystery Men?
no, I'm
So
googling it.
it's Janine Garofalo, Ben
Ben's.
Stiller, William H. Macy, Hank Azaria, Greg Kinnear. I feel like there's a lot more that I missed. Oh,
Is this based on a comic property or?
that's I feel like if it is, it feels like a Dark Horse property. If it is based on anything, I don't know if it is, but this came out in 1999, the year before the first X-Men movie came out, and it was kind of it was basically it was a satire of a genre that wasn't popular yet. So if that movie had come out 2 years later, I think it would have been a hit, and I think it probably would have gotten a sequel as well. But they were kind of just like a ragtag group of nobodies who needed to save the day because the like kind of Homelander Superman archetype Greg Kinnear wasn't doing the job. But it was again another unnecessarily brooding character. Ben Stiller's character, his superpower, he has no superpower. He's just angry. He just gets really mad, and that's
Love
all
it.
it is.
Like
Yeah,
his character in
but
Friends.
yes, very similar. Yeah. But yeah, that one was super just before the boat. Just missed it.
Did you ever watch that Drake Bell superhero movie?
No, well,
I
the
forget what it's
parody
called.
one, right?
Yeah, it's a parody.
And he plays Dragonfly, I think.
Yeah,
It's
it's
I
from
think it's literally
Superfly.
called Superhero Movie.
Yeah, superhero movie.
Yeah. That was when that was
Oh,
like
Craig
when
Mazin wrote this or
he wrote
directed.
Superhero Movie?
Yeah.
That's really funny. That was like that period of time, like after the third Scary Movie, when it was like from 2 of the 5 people who brought you Scary Movie, and it was like, oh yeah, well, okay, that should have bought you more goodwill than it actually bought you. Those movies, moving into like the medium age, Scary Movie was so big for me, and it made me like horror movies because I didn't really like horror movies. Like I wasn't like it wasn't a fear thing. It was just like, why am I not laughing? What like I'm watching a movie right now. I should be laughing. That's because like comedy was
Yeah.
my jam. And so like when I saw the first Scary Movie, I was like, oh, I guess I should see the things that this is parodying. But I love those movies.
And you love horror movies now or nah?
I would say I like horror movies. Again, it's just like, well, the thing about it is like nobody really makes comedies anymore. Like it's just not a thing
They
that
make
studios
comedy
invest
horror
in.
movies like Megan.
But then exactly. And so that's kind of how I get into horror now is that like I know that there's going to be good comedy in it because we just kind of have to, as an industry, hide comedy wherever we can fit
Have you
it
seen The
in these
Blackening
days.
yet?
No, I've heard it's good. I really
It's
want
more
to.
comedy than horror. Like there's one jump scare, I think, but highly recommend.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah. I've heard good things about it, but I definitely want to watch that.
What's your favorite
Also,
horror movie? Oh, go ahead.
ooh, no, I was going to jump backwards, but I want to answer the
No,
question
jump backwards
first.
if you want.
No, I'll hold on to it. Favorite horror movie, probably The Exorcist. It
Are you gonna watch the
just
new one?
like, yes, definitely. It just like it's oh no, it's a tie between The Exorcist and is it The Descent, I think. It's about like a group of women who get caught in a cave system. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure
The
it's called
Descent.
yeah, which I just found out the whole movie is a metaphor for grief. And I had no idea of that when I was watching it originally, but it's like it's so terrifying. The Exorcist was more like, the supernatural terrifying. This one was the Descent is a little bit more grounded. There's some creatures in it, so it's more of a creature feature, but like The Exorcist, it just like I think that was probably one of the first times where I was like, how are they doing that on screen? Like, how are they accomplishing these physical effects that they're doing? And it just kind of blew my mind.
Love it.
Yeah.
Now, where did you want to go backwards?
Well, I wanted to jump back to comics, specifically like cartoons, like in the newspaper, because it reminded me that I would, as soon as the newspaper would come, I would run outside and I would grab the comics page and I would take it away from the rest of the newspaper. And then I would, I don't care about the rest of the newspaper, and nobody else in the house would get the newspaper or the comics part of the newspaper until I was done with it. I always had to be the first one to get it. And Sundays when the color ones would come out, forget it. I would read those things over and over and over again.
Did you have a favorite?
I liked Dilbert. I liked Zitz a lot. Zitz was always a big one for me. Beetle Bailey was always really good. Obviously Garfield. But yeah, and I'd forgotten about that.
Love that. And then how do you feel about some of these translations of comics to the screen? Like, we don't have to talk about Riverdale, but like Garfield's Tale of Two Kitties.
I've only seen the first live action Garfield. I'm fine with it. It's an adaptation,
Yeah.
It's like here's the thing. I never get too bent out of shape or too hot when an adaptation doesn't live up to its source material, because it's like, yeah, like it's not gonna usually. It's because like the source material not only is usually like the story in its purest form, but it's also it holds so much subconscious nostalgic value that like how on earth could things live up to that?
Yeah. Now, before we move on to like stand up, and like I'm assuming in your large era, you were watching like stand up, SNL, but any I mean, I have to ask, any Disney movies for like, I feel like you remind me a lot of Mike Bloom just in general vibes wise, and like I'm assuming Robin Williams, the Genie, probably an inspiration to you as well.
Yes.
You're in the same age demo as Mike, so
yeah, Robin was definitely massive for me, and in ways that I didn't realize until later in life. Fern Gully, obviously, and the Genie were just two of my favorite characters before I realized why they were my favorite characters, which is just the fact that they were Robin. But yeah, I was huge into Disney movies. I think my ranking goes Aladdin, Lion King, Hercules, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas. That's my top five of Disney movies. Yeah. And like, because I also, and again, I didn't know this until later in life, but I was like, I love musicals. I adore musicals. But like, as a kid, I was just like, this is fun. But then later in life, I was like, yep, this all makes sense.
The Black Cauldron.
Not on the list. Not for me. Not for me.
Never seen it, but that's like one
the
of
little
the Disney.
wasn't on that list. So
yeah.
there's there's some snubs there. I get it. Everybody has their own thing, you know?
What you actually forgot to mention, your absolute favorite is Song of the South. I'm kidding. I'm just trying to cancel you. I'm kidding.
That's my frozen video call face.
Yeah. That's like, oh, gotta go.
Yeah.
But like, so Aladdin's your number one, probably heavily inspired by Robin Williams. That's a great top 5 though. Like, no misses. For me, I don't know. Like, I would want to include some Pixar just because they're like transformative for me. Like Finding Nemo.
Oh, that's a different list for me.
That's a different list though. Yeah. So it's like, like Toy Story 2, I think is so fun. That was like Toy Story 1 and 2 I had on VHS, and I would just like smash rewind.
The Toy Story movies give me such a sense of anxiety and dread like few other movies. It feels similar to Brave Little Toaster, like the way that I feel, because it's just like I definitely had like a thing with my toys, you know, like I was definitely like anthropomorphizing my toys, and so I would like the idea of like my toys having their own life but like also being in danger was like, I loved the movies, but they also gave me like anxiety before I knew what anxiety was.
Agreed. No, like I literally was looking at photos when I went home, and like I brought Woody and Buzz to Paris, to Greece. Like, so it's like I feel like still to this day, I'm like, oh, like there's some toys just hanging out by themselves at home, and I feel bad. Like, I hope they're having a party.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But yeah, let's transition over to the large era of Jordan's life. When did you first dabble into? I know SNL is a big thing for you. Like, when did you start discovering that stuff? Was that a little later, or was that in this era of like?
No, yeah, that was kind of in the like late elementary, early middle school era for me, because my dad was such a huge SNL fan that he started sharing that with me from an early age. And then when I was in 8th grade, my mom asked me to clean out our VHS shelf. She was like, we just like need to get rid of things that we aren't watching anymore, which also, quick little tangent story, there are a number of very famous movies I did not see the end of until I was like in my mid-20s, because the copy that we had at home wasn't the real VHS copy. My grandma would record them when they were on TV, but she would always get the timing wrong on the end of the movie. And so like for the longest time, I never saw the end of E.T. I never saw like the end.
You didn't know if he phoned home or not?
No, for a very long time.
What was your headcanon? Did you think that he made it or no?
The headcanon wasn't even like, let's complete the story. It was just like, I don't know, that's where the story ends. That's just because like we wouldn't even get to that point. It would just like, I feel like
where did you end? Like when he's in the hospital dying?
Like just before that. We wouldn't even get to that part. And so we're like, I'm ending a lot of movies in my childhood memory, like in like halfway through the third act. Yeah. And so there's a lot of critters. Maybe that's why all of my third acts are bad. Grandma.
I'm packing in therapy.
But yeah, so in 8th grade, my mom asked me to clean out our VHS shelf, get rid of things that we weren't watching. And I was cleaning that out with my best friend, my across the street neighbor, John Garvey. Hey, John.
Is he listening to this?
Maybe. There's a possibility.
Hi, John.
Guy. But I found a copy of Robin Williams Live at the Met from, I think it's from 1976. And I was like, well, I wonder what this is. And at this point in my life, like I knew Robin Williams as like a guy who did funny voices and was in movies that I liked, but I had never seen his stand-up before. And I think maybe I had never really seen stand-up before other than on SNL. And so so me and John put that into the VHS player and we watched it, I think that first day, like 4 times in a row. It was so good, and like still to this day I think is probably like one of the better stand-up specials that exist, and it just kind of like it unlocked something inside of me, and I was like, oh, like this is what I want to do, this is what makes me happy, this feels good. Like to make an entire room full of people laugh, that's a wonderful thing.
And is that like when you started dabbling into stand-up, or was that later on in life? But you like
Well,
first got
so
interested in it.
yeah, so it was kind of like the dabble, basically like the evolution of my dabble was that I would memorize the Robin Williams bits, and then I would go to school and I would do the Robin Williams bits. And then I took a
And
weird
John
left
didn't dox
turn.
you?
No,
No.
definitely not. But like he would join in too, and
Yeah.
like it was like very much, but like none of our other friends had seen this, very adult Robin Williams stand-up special from the 70s. And so like we knew what we were doing. And as far as they were concerned, these were just our bits that we were doing on our own. And they were like, wow, John and Jordan are really funny. But really, it's like, yeah, we were stealing from the best comedian in the world. Um, but yeah, so I would definitely mimic what I was seeing Robin do. I would do the same thing with SNL. I would watch the old episodes, I'd watch the current ones, and then I'd come into school on Monday, and I'd be doing some dumb Will Ferrell voice or something like that. Will is another one. I think. Well, before that, it was Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler was like the first time on SNL that I was like, that I see myself in that.
I know we both watched Winning Time. I saw a funny tweet yesterday that like the show
I think
got
I think
canceled.
I saw the same one.
Is it the one that
Which
like
one is yours?
that Adam McKay killed a lifelong friendship with Will Ferrell to get canceled? His show canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also saw another one that said, who did Bill Simmons pay off and how much did he pay them so that Winning Time
So
ended
nice.
with the Celtics winning a finals?
And I told you this yesterday. Like, I think it's so ironic that, like, I mean, as a Bostonian, like, I mean, like, but like,
Yeah.
I still wanted more Winning Time. It just was so expensive. Like, that has to be like one of the biggest reasons. Just because, like, knowing
I've
how
heard,
many sound stages they had was like
yeah,
8
yeah.
just in itself.
I
Yeah.
also heard there was a lot of blowback from the actual real life people,
Yes.
because like that's the thing when you're telling these stories that are like in the 80s, we're not that far removed from it, and so like 90% of the real people who are in these stories are still alive.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of blowback, but I don't think that's what did it, because like that's just press. That's just one of my favorite things about Winning Time, because I don't know, I'm sure this has happened lots of times, and maybe we can do research on this, but the guy who plays Norm Nixon,
It's his
the
son.
point guard, it's his son. That's so cool. What an amazing thing to have a famous father, and then you become an actor and you get to play your famous father. That's dope. That's a really cool thing. But yeah, I would have. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna
I
say
would have
maybe.
loved if we continued into the 90s and got like young Kobe and like got a
Yeah.
little like Shaquille O'Neal dynamic duo action.
I was gonna say maybe one day when you blow up and maybe your life story, you play your father instead.
Ooh, those stories are always really emotional. The Shia LaBeouf movie, Honey Boy. That thing is, it's heavy. It is, and like it's cool because Even Stevens was like my Disney Channel sitcom. That was like that, and Phil of the Future were like my two go-tos. Yeah, that's you're Phil. But yeah, and so like watching Honey Boy and like seeing what Shia, even though it's traumatized, to see what he was going through behind the scenes, it's like something that you can't even really compute.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with Chris Diamantopoulos. He played Mo in the Three Stooges movie. He's in Silicon Valley. But he early in his career, he did a made-for-TV movie where he played Robin Williams, and first of all, it is the most pitch perfect Robin Williams that I've ever seen. And it really like shows you what he was going through behind the scenes while he was doing, like Mork and Mindy or Happy Days, introducing Mork and then Mork and Mindy and all that stuff. And like, I think that was probably the first time that I learned that there was anything besides joy to Robin Williams.
Yeah. Which we can also discuss in a moment. But you mentioned the Sandman, your boy. So talk about your influence with Adam Sandler and your love of him and his projects. And then do you still keep up with the Sand Renaissance?
I'm all on board with Sandler always. I'm not even, I'm not mad at the things that people are mad at. I haven't watched You're So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah yet, but I've heard wonderful things. Sarah Sherman is in it, so how bad can it be? I love Sarah Sherman. But I think the thing with Sandler that really got me in the beginning was I grew up in a community that did have more Jewish people than most communities, but even saying that, it's like more Jewish people, like we make up 1% of the world's less than one at this point of the world's population. And so more than most neighborhoods was like, I was one of 8 kids in my class, 7 kids in my class were Jewish. And so like, I think it was just really cool to see somebody being like very vocal and proud and happy that they were Jewish. And so like when the Hanukkah song came out, I was like, whoa, like, is it cool to be Jewish? Like, is that a dope thing all of a sudden? And it really felt that way. And he was just like, the way I felt about Adam Sandler's comedy, especially on SNL, and like it translates to his movies as well, but I feel like on SNL, he was doing that thing that Steve Martin talks about where you're just having fun and like you don't know why you're laughing, but you're just laughing because you're in an absurd situation. And to watch somebody do that on screen was so joyful. It was just such a wonderful experience.
What is your favorite of the Sandman movies? Let me guess. It's either Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore. That's like.
Well, I mean, of course, those are like, those are the two big ones. I mean, there's no small coincidence why his production company is called Happy Madison.
Yeah.
But out of those two, I think it's Billy Madison. I loved Happy Gilmore, and I still do. I love both of them, and like almost equally. But it's like just like Billy Madison barely ekes out over the top on Happy Gilmore. There's something about the redemption story of Billy Madison. Obviously, it doesn't hurt to have Veronica Vaughn in there. That definitely piqued my interest as a little kid. And then again, it was just like, I feel like Happy Gilmore was kind of like, it was more straightforward. Like they had a concept and they really delivered on the concept, and there wasn't really too much room for like wacky fun in the middle of it. But I feel like every other scene in Billy Madison feels like a fever dream. Like all of those, when he graduates the grade and he has the parties, all of that's ridiculous. When he's, this was a scene that made no sense to me and still makes no sense to me. And I love it so much. He's walking down the steps. I forget what he's just done. He just like had a conversation with his dad or something. And he just hears a song start playing, and it's like bum 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 bum, and he consciously, as the character, is hearing a song playing on the soundtrack that's not playing in the universe he's in, and then he just starts dancing to "I'll Tumble for You," "I'll Tumble for You," and I was just like, "What's happening? This is so goofy. I love it." So I think it was Billy Madison over that, but then you go from there to friggin' Waterboy into Lil Nicky, Big Daddy. Like
Big Daddy, I've only seen it once, and I love the movie. I don't know why I've never revisited it, but it just broke me. I was sobbing at the end.
Same. It was definitely I can wipe my own ass. Like, oh my God. That triggered the same kind of feelings as like the Toy Story and
Brave Little Toaster.
Brave Little Toaster kind of thing. I was just like, oh no, what's
what movie? Just to circle back to Disney movies, you know what movie always broke me? The Fox and the Hound. So sad.
I think I only saw that like one time. I really I couldn't even, if you told me to give you a synopsis, I couldn't do it.
Well, because it's about friends who drift apart. Also, another movie that destroyed me. I should not have watched this when I was 8. Brother Bear.
Yep. Yeah, Brother Bear was rough.
I remember where I was, and I was just like a mess. And my mom was like consoling me. I was like, but he killed his mom.
Is Brother Bear, is that DreamWorks or is that a Disney animation?
It's Disney
animation. Wow.
Keanu Reeves? No, sorry, Joaquin Phoenix is.
I was gonna say, I was like, what? But also equally, what? I didn't realize that was Joaquin Phoenix. Should I go back and watch Brother Bear now?
Yes, but you will cry. But also, Phil Collins left no crumbs on the soundtrack of that. We always talk about Tarzan, but also,
Phil Collins never leaves any crumbs. Phil Collins always eats the whole gosh dang plate.
He's like Cookie Monster. He makes sure everything's in his mouth.
He does, yeah. They call him Phil the Cookie Monster Collins.
Yes. I mean, for me, this might have been more of a my era thing, but like Grown Ups, I love that movie so much. Like, even though it's stupid,
No,
it's
but it's
fun.
fun. And
Yeah.
it's like I love a story about friends who lose touch and then come back together. That's always like an archetype of a story that I'm gonna be on board for. And it was also just like it felt like this is what those people really were like, because at this point when they did Grown Ups, they all of them had already done so many movies together, and they'd been, I mean, like most of them, obviously with the exclusion of Kevin James, they all went through SNL together, and so they all had like a very long history together. And so to have them all on the screen kind of playing these like obviously not fictionalized versions of themselves, but like playing something that's grounded, not crazy over the top, it felt cozy.
I also love bedtime stories. It's such a fun movie.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I mean, Click.
Click. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up.
Talk about movies that absolutely destroy me. That thing when you got old Adam and he's running in the rain, oh my God, I melt. I die. Every time to this day, every time I've rewatched Click, it absolutely destroys me.
I don't want you to be destroyed, but the movie needs to.
Sometimes you need to be destroyed so you can build up from the rubble, you know?
Me this summer. Um, and then before I move on from the Sandman, we have to talk about Eight Crazy Nights. Did you feel like, I mean, like so much representation with that?
So much representation. Because like you really, I mean, that's the whole reason that the Hanukkah song exists, is because there isn't too much Hanukkah representation and Jewish representation. And around the holidays, it definitely feels like kind of like the forgotten middle child of the holidays. And it's just like to see that on screen while also seeing a character dealing with grief at the same time and dealing with it poorly was awesome. I still think to this day, and this is a dream role of mine, if anybody is listening can help me make this happen, let's
Live action?
friggin' do it. Not live action, Broadway.
Ah,
Broadway for the holidays, the same way that they do the Grinch on Broadway or Elf around the holidays. Why not? Because it's not just a Hanukkah story. It's a story about the holidays, and it's about family and reconnection and forgiveness. And I think you do all the songs that are in the show. You could do Whitey and his sister as puppets, which would be really fun. Do it like Avenue Q style with those characters. And then just like maybe you get Sandman to do a couple more songs. Maybe you do the SpongeBob thing and you just have like famous musicians pop in a couple more songs, because it already is like
Lin-Manuel Miranda. No, I'm kidding.
Look, here's the thing about Lin. He's an incredible songwriter. He is a great improviser. There's just a lot of times where we don't need Lin doing his own material. And that's okay.
He's
but
also not Jewish, so it's like doesn't even.
Well, he's also not Jewish, but that's not going to stop him. But also, it's just like, as I said before, if I'm making the movie of my family, I'm casting myself, whether people like it or not. And it's the same thing. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda puts so much effort and work into his projects that, like, yeah, of course he's going to be in it.
Well, like the way you talk about Adam Sandler is like more of a recent thing, but like Lin-Manuel Miranda like is like one of the first big Latinos, especially in like musicals in theater. Yeah. So it's like I deeply resonate with him. Like if I ever am fortunate enough to write like a movie and can like pick anyone to compose, making a musical, I'm like, Lin, you're coming with me. We're bringing you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also I feel like these days it's like if you're doing a new musical, you're either getting Lin, you're getting what's the pair that did Frozen?
The Lyle Crocodile pair.
Yeah, Frost.
And the Greatest Showman, but yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also the Dear Evan Hansen crew. So it's like those are kind of like the three that you get.
Pasek and Paul.
Yes, Pasek and Paul. That's the Dear Evan Hansen pair. And then there's also Frost something, I think is one of their last names, and then I forget what the other one is, and I think they were the Frozen ones. Either way, that makes sense, of course. And he's, like I said, extremely, extremely talented. Obviously, I think if I'm doing a musical, I go Alan Menken. personally.
Yes, I mean, you
Because,
have
like, oh my God, like,
Alan
just the
Menken.
absolute number of hits.
Would also be okay with Elton John if he wants to come out of retirement for that.
Well, sure. I guess, yeah, fine. I'll go with Elton if he's
Or
around.
if I write a movie and it's animated, what's Phil Collins up to?
What? Just probably making hits somewhere. That's
Yeah.
all he does.
So we brushed on the theater. What was your first, besides like the Disney movies, first musical that you were like, oh, I like movies that like deal with like music? And then what was Baby Jordan's first play or acting gig?
I'll answer those backwards. Baby Jordan's first acting gig was in fourth grade. I did a play called Camp Goodnight. From all recollections, it was probably an original piece by my elementary school theater directors, I would assume. But usually the way it worked was like it was a fourth and fifth grade production every single year. And the fifth graders were always the leads and the fourth graders were just kind of like, the background characters. But I auditioned, and as a fourth grader, they were like, "You're the lead of the show," and I was like, "Oh, huh? Do I like this?" And then I like, so my grandfather was an actor as well as an artist, and so I got to go to him and be like, "Hey, like I have this lead in this play. How do I do this?" And so my grandfather kind of taught me the process of like, this is how you put a character together. This is how you study your lines. And like, I would sit with my grandfather and learn my lines. And he taught me a technique that I still use to this day, which is recording your lines, saying your lines into a tape recorder, and then listening to them back, and then doing them again, listening to them back until you have it completely locked in. And so I still use that to this day. So I think of my grandfather every time I learn lines. But that was the first kind of foray into performance for me. I mean, I was always performing. I was just a kid who like always wanted to be the center of attention. Well, for sure. I bet 90% of the city we live in. And then with musicals, it was like I kind of had this mental barrier, like not against them, but I just like. I didn't really, outside of Disney movies, I didn't really get into them until in eighth grade. I went to the high school I was about to be going to the following year. I went to their production of Footloose because my sister was a trombone player and she was playing in the pit. And so we went to go see that. And oh, wait, no, it wasn't Footloose. It was Bye Bye Birdie. That was the first one I saw. And when I saw the guy playing Conrad, they had this cool like extension of the stage that like came out into the audience. And he was like really doing the like full Conrad Elvis shtick and like getting everybody into it. And I was like, oh, he heated this room up real fast. I want to go to there. I want to be that guy immediately. And then when I got to high school, I started doing shows. And it was a lot of things where I would audition for the show and get the role. And then I would tell my mom and she'd be like, I tried to tell you about this show 3 years ago and you didn't want to hear about it. Like the biggest one was Pippin. She tried to get me interested in Pippin. Also Stephen Schwartz, another one who you can't go wrong with for making some music. But she tried to get me interested in Pippin, and it wasn't until I did the show that I was like, oh, this is incredible. This is a wonderful show. And then she definitely had a lot of I told you so moments with that.
Classic Jordan's mom, Melissa McCarthy.
Classic.
Miss Melissa did eat it up in Little Mermaid. Like,
oh, absolutely. She was having fun.
Poor Unfortunate Souls, I think, was the biggest. Like, Pat Carroll did amazing with it in the original one, but like I think that's the best translation from the original to like live action. I thought it looked so good.
Here's my thing with that. It looked really, really good. Makeup was incredible. Lighting was great. The effects were really, really good. Melissa McCarthy is a wonderful performer, and I absolutely adore most of the things that she does. Having said that, the fact that we didn't get a drag queen to play that role is, and absolute crying shame. It
Yeah.
is just such an absolute missed opportunity for representation. And
Yep.
it bums me out to no end, especially because the design of that character was based on Divine, which,
Yeah.
obvious, like one of the most famous drag queens of all time. So
I
definitely a missed opportunity.
I agree everything with what you said. I don't know if Disney would have done that, but they were.
Well, yeah, they probably wouldn't have, but
It should have been.
it should
That
have
being
been.
said, I'm also very glad that it was Melissa McCarthy as opposed to what I wanted a couple years ago, which was Lizzo. But now we're like, okay, maybe
Yeah.
this take aged badly.
Yeah, Lizzo, and that's the thing, is it wouldn't have aged well. Melissa
Yeah.
McCarthy has stood the test of time. She's been working for so long. She's been a stalwart force in comedy now for a number of years, and she's just so crazy talented. Sometimes Melissa McCarthy is one of those people where I wish that we lived in an alternate dimension where she was on SNL. There's a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of
a little
people that I
surprising
feel
that she
that way
wasn't.
about.
But one of my in freshman year of college, I really went down like an SNL rabbit hole, and it was like by that point like past the like peak SNL like of my generation.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, what's peak SNL? Because like Lorne Michaels always says, it's sort of that thing of your favorite cast is always the cast like when you're in middle school and high school. Is that true for you?
I feel like that's the one that like the people who grew up watching SNL. I wasn't the biggest SNL girly, but like freshman year, like Cecily Strong, Kate McKinnon were there, like
Oh my
Leslie
God, the Girl Power
Jones.
2.0 on SNL. That thing
Yeah,
was there was so much awesome feminine energy on that show in such a like incredible way.
the one of the ones that I really loved was the Ariana Grande song that they did about like being a woman. Like I'll find it and send it to you later. Maybe I'll put that
Okay,
as the
yeah,
outro. But Melissa McCarthy had one that my favorite SNL skit that was from that era was she was on like basically like Wheel of Fortune sort of game with
yeah.
what's his name, Beck Bennett as the host, and
Well, of
she's a
course.
character.
If
Yeah,
you're doing a game show sketch in that era, it's Beck Bennett hosting.
and she was like, "It's past the mash." Like and like it was just cracking me up, and I can't find it on YouTube anymore. But like that one,
A
like just
lot
the
of
way
them
she does it.
disappear.
Yeah, she was like, "I would like to buy a vowel," and she just ate it up.
Well,
So
she was a groundling. That's
yeah.
where she got her start, and so it's like it makes so much sense that she's so incredible in all of these comedies because
Oh,
she
now it's
got,
back online. Okay,
one
they found it. I'll
one
send
of
it
the
to you.
best educations you can get in comedy at Groundlings. So
Yeah.
I think she was with Kristen Wiig. She was in Dak Shepard's class. So it
Mm.
was Dak Shepard and Melissa McCarthy, and there were a few others in that group with them, but they were all in the same group.
Now I feel like in the early 2010s we were living in a good era of comedy, like between Bridesmaids, just so like I feel like that was like
The,
kind of like the last era of like because we've discussed this individually, like there's not a ton of comedies that come out anymore, like
yeah,
straight comedies, unless you're looking for Strays or other actually I feel like you would like Bottoms if you haven't seen it yet.
I haven't. I've heard really, really good things. I like
It's
everybody who's
super
in it.
campy. Yeah. But like what are you like if you are there like besides Adam Sandler movies, like are there three, maybe one, two, or three movies that you think of like peak comedy film that like you feel inspired by or like you absolutely adore?
Yeah, definitely. I think Anchorman is going to be the number one on that list.
Your face did light up when it was on in the break room.
Oh my God, because it's just like it's just so funny, and like you rarely go more than 30 seconds without laughing at something in Anchorman. And it's also one of those films where when you watch it at the same rate that you're laughing, you're these days you're like, whoa, I can't believe they were in that movie too, because it's
Mhm.
just so many famous faces. And then kind of on that same note, probably 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Mhm.
It
Jane
again, just
Lynch.
like I mean, the list is endless of the fun that is in that film. So I think yeah, Anchorman, 40-Year-Old Virgin, and then it was definitely That Adam McKay, Will Ferrell era was. Oh, you know what? It has to be another Will Ferrell one, because this one just was another one where I was like, this is so goofy and fun. The Other Guys.
Okay.
Just so good. But like, so those kind of movies and the 2010s, like around Bridesmaids, was kind of the end of what I call just a point and shoot comedy, which is basically, in my perception, just like you have the loose storyline and you have the beats you need to hit in the scene, and then you just set up your camera and you let incredible comedians improvise. And that's the kind of thing that we don't make anymore, because we just, the studios and streamers don't want to invest money into an unknown entity. That's why we want to, pick up projects that are based on IPs, because they have a built-in fan base, and that way we know that we're getting X number of dollars on these projects. But like, it just doesn't compare with the magic of having incredible performers all doing what they do together.
Yeah, and I mean, that was like my biggest concern when I read that Deadpool 3 was still going to go without letting Ryan Reynolds improv, and I was like, ooh.
Well, you know what made me feel better about that is that ultimately with Deadpool, you can ADR a lot of those jokes in there.
Because he has a mask.
So like, because he has a mask, but then what you do lose is people's reactions to his improvising.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And
but that was like, I mean, that was like kind of one of the last, in your terms, point and shoot type of things where like that I can think of at least. Who are your comedy influences? I wanted to ask, like, is the Lonely Island like some trio that you love? I mean, I think they're all Jewish. At least two of them are. Like,
I've never actually looked that up. I would assume, I know Andy is. What? I would assume that I would assume that Akiva is, just based on his last name, and then
Yorma. Jorma is not. I don't think.
Yeah, I was gonna say Yorma's the outlier. Yorma. I would assume that Yorma's probably not. Yeah, and saying that, Hot Rod also comes onto that list of just comedies that just make me feel good. Because again, it's just like what's happening here? It's just very, very silly. And again, another one where you're like, wow, oh my God, like Danny McBride, Bill Hader, just like even Isla Fisher is incredible in that movie. But yeah, The Lonely Island was big for me, because when they were doing their digital shorts, that was when I was like really starting to like study how to make movies and television, like in school. I was lucky enough to go to a high school that had a TV and film program. And so I started studying that when the digital shorts were coming out. And so it was definitely like, I can see the way that they're doing this. And for the first time in my life, not only am I appreciating the fact that I'm enjoying this from a comedy standpoint, but I'm also like, oh, okay, I see how they did this. Because they didn't hide a lot of things. They kind of like, it was all very surface level. Did you ever see their failed, not failed and didn't go anywhere, so I guess you can't call it, but failed their attempt at a sitcom?
I did not know.
It's incredible. It's called Awesome Town.
Okay.
And it's like a sketch show. It feels like kind of like somewhere between like The State and
it's on YouTube. Cool.
Yes, yeah. So it feels like somewhere in between The State and Key and Peele. And it's just, again, it's just goofy, weird fun. But they were definitely big for me.
Love it. One of my big pop culture blind spots is Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stoppin'. But I do love one specific song that it has another name, but I only know it as the Bin Laden song.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. That one was definitely like that one felt like Popstar felt like oh, by the way, like we can make movies too. Like we can make like commercially successful movies, in case anybody was.
And have you seen the Chippendales movie directed by Akiva?
Oh my God, it was so good. It was so much fun. It just like it didn't need to be as substantial and funny as it was.
It's
and
the modern day Rabbit with more comedy.
100%. Yes, that is absolutely accurate. Yeah.
So when you turned 19, you moved out this way, or when you were 19, I don't know if it was like on your birthday, you were like, I'm moving, but you moved out to LA to pursue the arts. The art talents. What was like the biggest draw to you when you first moved out here? Like, was it the comedy? Was it the acting? Was it everything? Was it just like, I'm in the city of dreams? I don't know if that's one of the unofficial nicknames of LA, but
I mean, I think it is. But
you're in La La
I
Land.
mean, yeah, and that's kind of what it was. Cause like, so I did a little bit of research before I moved out here, but not as much as I should have. And like, that's why I said before it was a silly idea for a 19-year-old to do it. I'm extremely happy that I did it, but like, I recommend somebody who's 19 moving across the country with no family, no friends out there? No, that's a very, very difficult thing. But I think so. When I was deciding, like, okay, I'm moving out, I want to become an actor, I want to really do this. I don't want to study this in school. I want to learn as I do it. um, the decision came down to, okay, am I going to New York? Am I going to Chicago? Am I going to Los Angeles?
No
And
Vancouver?
no,
No.
Vancouver wasn't on the list at that point. I wasn't even like in enough into the industry to know that that was a thing. I knew, well, I guess I knew Toronto
Yeah.
because for my 14th birthday, my dad got me an anthology book of the Second City. It was just like the history of the Second City. So I knew that Toronto had a comedy scene, but it was like, I'm all right. I'm 19 years old. I'm already planning on moving out of my home. I'm not also going to emigrate to a different country. And so it was like, okay, do I go to New York and maybe follow this like musical theater passion and then like kind of do comedy on the side? And just go for like, you know, kind of procedurals and stuff like that? Do I go to Chicago and go like full-fledged comedy, go to Second City and like really do the comedy thing? Or do I go to Los Angeles and try and do everything all at once? And if you don't know me, doing everything all at once is very, very much my personality type. I
Michelle
am
Yeoh,
very
Jordan Katcher.
pretty much the same person.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ultimately what sold it for me was like I grew up in a place that had cold winters. And so I was like, you know what? I've had this for 18 years now. Why not go somewhere warm?
Yeah.
And it was just, it really felt like kind of the best of both worlds where like I had Groundlings, Second City. When I moved here, there was still IO over here, and UCB. And then I obviously like the rest of the film industry. And then I was like, there's probably a musical theater scene out here. I was wrong about that. But
I mean, there
yeah,
probably
and
is, but like it's very
there is. It's just, it's very different than
contagious.
New York.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I wouldn't want to have been. I did a couple like open calls before I moved out. Like when I was just like, when I had just graduated high school, I went and did a couple open calls for Broadway shows, and I got like a couple callbacks, and it felt good. But I was like, I don't. There's too many people doing the musical theater thing, and they're like crazy talented, especially in the dancing way. I'm a mover. I'm not a dancer. But yeah, so that was kind of the thing that locked me in
Wow.
on LA.
I wish you had been at Stephen's party. We did a dance class.
I know,
It
I
was
heard.
giving dance rehearsals.
Yeah, totally.
Sheldon should direct a musical. We should have someone direct a musical.
We should do a musical. Let's just do a
Yeah.
musical.
I've always wanted to be a director. I mean, maybe this is more of like a youth musical, but I think the perfect musical, the best musical, like in terms of like musical theater numbers, like there, I feel like it would be such a fun musical to direct a Goofy movie.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, I hear people talk about wanting to do that as a stage version so often. It's so fun and
Like
like really heartfelt and great music.
when I was 12, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pitch, like write the script version, the book for or like the is it the book? No, I'm gonna write the book for the Goofy movie, and then I'll find someone to like do the musical arrangements. And but I was like, I'm a
Yeah.
12-year-old, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
I'm honestly like a little bit surprised it hasn't happened yet. At least maybe
I don't
not
want
as
it to
like
be
a
a live
full
action
scale
movie,
musical,
but I think a
but
stage
like,
musical.
yeah, or even just like the way that they're doing Rogers right now at Disneyland. I feel
Yeah,
like that would be the perfect venue for a
agreed.
good musical.
I still need to see that.
Um, yeah, me too. They just released the soundtrack.
Oh, cool. I only know
Yeah.
Save the City because of Hawkeye, but
Well, yeah,
yeah.
sure, of course. I could do this all day. Yeah, so good.
What's your go-to audition song?
Oh, I mean, it depends on the vibe.
Is it Santa
Are we
Fe?
talking? Are we talking like I do? I do love a good Santa Fe. Who doesn't?
When we
Are we
were tour
talking
training,
like?
Jocelyn, when we got to the Tenement Alley stuff,
Oh,
Jocelyn
of
was like, "Oh,
course.
you mean like every single tenor audition song?"
Yeah, yeah, of course. It is the go-to tenor audition song.
Yeah.
When I was tour training, Brad was like, "Does anybody know anything that's shot in this area?" And I went, "That's Santa Fe, right?" And he went, "Jordan, of course you know that." I was like, "What? I'm just gonna diss my boy Kenny Ortega?" But
Yes, we didn't talk about High School Musical. That we're going to circle back to that.
Yeah.
So, what are your audition songs, and then we'll circle back to the HSM
Well,
trilogy.
what's the vibe here? Are we going for like romantic lead? Are we doing funny best friend? It's well because
Let's do like a drama, a comedy, romance, or like something like
I
dramatic,
got you already. I
something
got you.
side character, and then something main character.
So it's from a funny thing happened on the way to the forum, and
Speaking for Lakers.
yeah, oh, the forum. I can't remember what the name of the song is, but it's basically just like it's the male lead. He's addressing the audience, and he's basically telling the audience like I'm feeling these things, and like from it's called Love I Hear. And it's basically him being like, so I've heard that this is what happens to you when you're in love, but I'm not in love. I've never been in love, so I don't know if that's what's happening to me.
My dumbass did not realize this was about like ancient the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
I thought the funny thing happened on the way to the forum was like this 50s like Music Man type musical until just now.
No, yeah,
Today I
yeah. It's
learned
like
most men think about the Roman Empire, including Stephen Sondheim.
yep, definitely.
Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
he's on that list for sure. But yeah, so that's for that vibe. I'm going Love I Hear. Yeah.
And then what about like? So is that like your comedy vibe, or is that your drama?
Well, that's more like kind of like the romantic drama piece, like just to show like there's definitely some like kind of like subtle tongue-in-cheek comedy in that song. But if I'm going like straight up comedy, there's It's Your Wedding Day from Wedding Singer. I'll go for that one. Or did you ever watch Central Park on Apple TV?
I have not. No.
Great show. Well, first season. I haven't made my way through the second yet. Fantastic cast, and they did that SpongeBob musical thing of having a bunch of different artists do the soundtrack. And there's an Alan Menken song in that show that Josh Gad's character performs, and it's called Spoiler Alert. And so Josh Gad's character is the narrator, and he's like getting so excited about what's about to happen in the story that he has to bleep himself from spoiling the story to the audience. And so that's a go-to.
My assumption was going to be a different Josh Gad musical, The Book of Mormon, but
yeah, I mean, the thing about book is that it's hard for me not to just do Josh Gad and Andrew Rannells. Like I just like when I sing those songs, I just do impressions of them, and like I don't
need to be you.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I feel with those other songs, I can kind of like bring a little bit of myself to the table as opposed to just like, yeah, okay, he sounds like Josh Gad. He sounds like Andrew Rannells, which like there are worse things to sound like.
Now we got to circle back to one of my favorite musicals, High School Musical.
Wow,
the DCOM era
in the house. Yeah.
What are your favorite DCOMs? Or like, it doesn't have to be a DCOM if it's like a Nickelodeon movie of the same generation. Like what are your like?
No. We can go DCOM for sure. So the first one I ever saw was Eddie's $1 Million Cookout, or Cook-Off rather.
How dare you? Did you want the purple syrup thing?
So bad. Oh my God. I assumed that it was incredible. And that was before, or like just as Disney Channel was like, yeah, we're going to be part of your regular cable package instead of being the add-on thing. And so I watched that at my friend Taylor's house, and I was like, oh, this was awesome. Because it was kind of foreshadowing the way that I felt with High School Musical, because my dad was also a chef. And so
your dad wears many hats.
He does, and that's part of where I got it from. Also from my grandfather. He was, like I said, an actor, an
Now, the
artist. He was
grandfather
a
you
singer.
referenced earlier, the actor, that's your paternal grandfather?
No, my maternal
Really?
grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was kind of the first time where I was like, oh, people can like sports and also like creative things, because I was very much a sports kid. I played sports all year round. If I wasn't playing a team sport, I was with my friends at a field playing sports, So that was the first time that I was like, oh, cool, people can be
But
creative
not
and
a
athletic.
concussion sport.
No concussion sports, no
I mean,
CTE for
honestly,
me.
though, CTE, I did get a concussion on swim team, so it happens. Like, I got
Did you
kicked in the
swim
head
into the
during
wall?
practice.
You got kicked in the head. Oh
During
my
backstroke?
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And
What else did you swim besides backstroke?
oh, so that was just during practice. We were doing backstroke. I was a backstroke kid, but my main stroke was breaststroke. That
Same.
was my best. And then I also got a concussion in volleyball because I got spiked in the head. So yeah, I've had a couple of concussions for a fat boy that wasn't good at sports.
Dang.
But I did swim team. I did water polo for a season.
I've never played like organized water polo. It looks so impressive.
It's so fun. My brother is a big water polo guy because he was talented enough that when they cut the JV program, I did it in 9th grade because I went to a fancy private school where they had that program. So they had JV in 9th grade. And then by the time I got to 10th grade, I wasn't good enough to be on the varsity because they cut the JV program. So I was the goalie my freshman year, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, no, we should once this all heals, we should get a organized water polo game happening.
Yes, definitely. All water sports. We should play a torpedo league too.
Nice. But what were your sports?
Early days, I was soccer, baseball, basketball. Those were the main ones. And then I picked up cross country around high school. And then around that same time, I also picked up ultimate frisbee, which became
You do give frisbee, bro.
I appreciate that. I take that as a compliment, whether it's intended to or not.
It is a compliment.
You know what drives me crazy sometimes though is like sometimes when you just tell people you play ultimate frisbee, they laugh.
Yeah.
People don't do that when you play other sports. When you say I play basketball, nobody laughs. You just like, yeah, that's a sport. I just like after playing so many sports.
Frisbee is more of a sport than golf, if you ask me. I don't know. That's just
for sure.
Golf is a game.
You know what? Golf is a game, and golf is a competition, but it's not a sport. Well, it's a sport. Don't get me wrong. That's another cancelable take. But yeah, so around high school, I started picking up ultimate frisbee, and like with other sports, I was like, I had to work hard to be good at them. But ultimate frisbee was the first time that, like, from the moment I stepped onto a field and had a disc in my hand, I was naturally very.
What in your hand?
A disc, bro. Well, frisbee is a trademark term. Unless it's a Whammo brand frisbee, it's not a frisbee, it's a disc. So from the second that I had my disc in my hand, I just it was the first time that I was like, oh, I feel very good at this sport naturally. And then like I also, because I had to work so hard in other sports, paired that with a little bit of natural talent, and I got pretty good at ultimate frisbee for a long time. There is still no good ultimate frisbee movie out there, and there really needs to be. Just again putting that out there. She's coming. We got the board up there. Okay. Yeah, so those were kind of my main sports. And then being somebody who was playing basketball and then also doing the plays and doing the musicals, obviously High School Musical was like very, very much a resonator with me. I was like, oh, I feel so seen right now. And like I gave Troy Bolton vibes for sure.
Yeah.
But circling back on that, there's more Disney Channel original movies that I loved. Smart House.
Great film. One of the first podcasts I've ever done in my career was a Smart House podcast.
Smart House?
Yep.
Really? So
yeah.
you know who directed it, right?
LeVar Burton of Reading Rainbow.
I learned that this year.
And Community. You learned that this year?
Yeah, I did. I had no idea that LeVar. I was on his IMDb randomly. I was like, I wonder where LeVar Burton got his start. And then I was like, oh, he directs sometimes. And then I went to his page and I was like, Smart House? Are you kidding me?
The scene where they're dancing lives rent free in my head. Just like the random dance at the start of the party, just for no reason. Yeah. But I love it.
In front of that like big giant screen. Yeah. Obviously,
the
the
house
Even
is
Stevens
jumping.
movie. Yes, yeah. Even Stevens movie is wonderful.
A
Was
Decom Blonde
Clock
Spot, if you ask me.
was Clock Stoppers Disney Channel or
No,
was that
it's
Nickelodeon?
Paramount, a Nickelodeon movie, but like I think it
That
was in
makes sense.
theaters. But like it's a great film. I
It
remember
is,
when I
but
watched it for the
we won't
first
talk about
time.
that.
I watched Clock Stoppers while my parents were driving to the Brazilian elections because they're usually in Framingham in Massachusetts because that's the big Brazilian population. So I watched it on the
Really?
computer while they were driving to go cast their votes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Why is that a big Brazilian population there? That's so
It
interesting.
just is. Like Massachusetts has a big Brazil, like Framingham specifically, like the Boston area has a lot of Brazilian immigration. I'm going to look this up. Brazilian immigrants, Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Brazilians settled in cities. 5% of Massachusetts Brazilian population is in Boston. Why are there so many Brazilians in Massachusetts? I don't know. Well, this is an off-topic
I don't know.
conversation, off
That's what
podcast
Google
conversation.
said. It's not good when you Google something and Google's answer is, I don't know. Why is that?
Well, I'm
But that is
assuming, at least for my parents, like they went to Boston has a lot of colleges, and then so maybe like if they go for school and then stay in the Boston area, that's like
sure.
kind of what happened to my parents. So I don't know. I will ask when my dad gets here today. I'll ask if he knows why, and then I will
Well,
tell you when I
I'm
see you
excited to
inside.
learn. Yeah, I'm excited to learn that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so High School Musical was obviously very like it was super big. It was literally just like, oh, I feel like this is about me.
Have you dabbled into the High School Musical, the series?
I haven't. I'm open to it. It seems like one of those things I want to wait
Watch
until it's
clips.
done so I can
Oh,
just
it's done.
do
It's
the
done.
whole. Oh, it is. It's officially done.
Yes, and it
And like,
ends in a weird place in the middle of the school year, even though it's supposed to like I don't know. I can break it down for you in the break room. I can do a whole PowerPoint about it if you want. I would
okay,
recommend clips. You should watch Olivia Rodrigo's "The Rose Song." So good.
okay, all right.
Just Olivia Rodrigo in general, but
Um,
I'll give you the
it
highlights.
sounded for a second. It sounded like you said Shrek'emend. And I don't know how, but I'm going to need to be working that into my everyday speech from now on. It's just,
Recommendations
yeah, just some
when you recommend an animated
recommendations.
movie.
Yeah, I think so. That's probably it. That was another one that I was like enamored with as a kid because I was just like, oh, what a like incredible cast, so much fun. Yeah.
I'm not surprised that you love the Mike Myers.
Oh, of course, and like yeah, like Austin Powers, Wayne's World. All of his stuff was always in heavy rotation for sure.
Besides Smart House and Eddie's and the High School Musical trilogy, any other decom stand out? Were you a Halloween Town guy?
No, I wasn't a Halloween Town guy. There's that Johnny Tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Tsunami was up there. There was another one that had the kid from who played Twitty in Even Stevens, I think. It was like an inline roller skating.
Oh, Brink.
Brink, yes. Yeah,
Did
Brink
a
was up there
podcast on
for
that
me
one
too.
too with my friend Robbie.
And then
Irish.
what Luck of the Irish. Oh, Luck of the Irish was so good. Oh my god, I love that
Wait,
movie so
you the one
much.
about the Orthodox boys' school that plays basketball, Full Court Miracle?
Full Court Miracle? Of course I saw
That
Full
one,
Court
5 out
Miracle.
of 5 on Letterbox for me. That like I've
Full
seen it
Court,
one time. I did a podcast on it. My friend Sarah was like, "You got to watch this for Hanukkah." I'm like, okay,
yeah,
cool. You just got to do the podcast with me because I am not Jewish. Even though like I grew
yeah.
up, actually, my town was very Jewish, and I only got invited to one bar/bat mitzvah in my middle school, and I was so sad because I was like so jealous that they got to have these big parties, and I never got invited. But yeah, so I love that movie. It's like legitimately
Me
really good, and
too.
it's Alex Linz, Max
Yeah.
Keeble.
Yeah. That Full Court Miracle was such a big one for me. And like for some reason, the thing that resonated with me the most in Full Court Miracle was just the idea of like a middle school kid walking up to a full-grown adult and being like, this is what you should be doing with your time. That was very much the kind of kid that I was. Like I would go talk to anybody about anything. And so like
Yeah.
that part of that movie definitely resonated for sure. But yeah, those were all So, oh, wait. Is it Pixel Perfect? Is that what it's called? Where the
Picture,
like the
yeah, no,
digit,
Pixel Perfect, yeah,
right?
with
The
the
rock
digital
star who's a
girlfriend, yeah,
hologram. Yeah. Oh
yeah.
my God.
I've only
I
seen
had
the
such a crush
first
on her.
act
Oh my
because I
God.
was watching it and then they went to commercial and then my mom woke up and was like, "Go to bed, you have school tomorrow," and I was like, "Oh,"
Mm.
but so
Of
I
that
never
same
finished it.
era, um, jumping for me up two channels. Do you remember all of the channels for your like what station they were for all
I
your like favorite?
know. I think I remember the big three. I think Nickelodeon was 25, Disney Channel was 24, and then uh, Cartoon Network was 60. I think.
Oh, that's a big jump for Cartoon Network. Mine was
Yeah.
31 was Disney, 32 was Cartoon Network, 33 was Nickelodeon, which like how great to
Nice.
just do.
Yeah.
But all that obviously because I was such an SNL person, all that was just like as a kid when they did that like we're looking for our newest cast member. Could it be you? And then they just wound up going with Jamie Spears. I was like, oh, this is nepotism. That was my first instance of being like, oh, you have to know people, huh? Your
Yeah.
sister has to be the biggest pop star in the world in order for you to get any recognition. But I loved
Yeah.
all that. It was
Also, the 13th Year as a swim team boy. I love that movie so much.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Um, and Uncle Joey's in it. Dave Coulier is the
Mm,
dad.
problematic.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
did not know that. That's sad.
Oh yeah.
We'll talk
Do
offline.
do a little bit of research into
Well, I know about him
his
and Alanis
personal life.
Morissette. Yeah.
That's pretty much
Oh, okay.
the beginning and end of why Dave Coulier is problematic. As far as what I know, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Um, Speaking, I'm assuming Bob Saget might be an influence of yours.
You know, he was kind of a blind spot stand up wise. I loved Full House. It was probably one of my favorite sitcoms growing up. But yeah, no, I didn't get into his stand up until later in life, and then obviously once I got into it, I was
Yeah.
enamored. He
But
was
like,
so
I did
wonderful.
want to ask, who are your creative influences, whether it's stand up, whether it's sketch comedy? I mean, we've talked a couple about them: Robin Williams, Adam Sandler, The Lonely Island. But like, who else is there that like really inspires you? That like is an influence in your style, in your brand? Um,
I think it's definitely it's a lot of what we talked about with Will Ferrell, Andy Samberg, definitely Adam Sandler, Jim Carrey is high up on that list. I I mean not in the same way, but Daryl Hammond was massive for me. Just like being somebody who does voices and impressions, watching somebody do it to that high degree was so cool. Um, and then like as we kind of move forward into if we're getting out of medium and into large days, Dimitri Martin was so big for me, but only by way of Stephen Wright, who was also really big because like they both had that kind of like deadpan dry delivery, which like I always respected comics like that because the content has to be hilarious. You can't use your personality to make a joke funny if it's not funny. The words have to be funny, and mathematically, scientifically, it has to be funny. And I love that. And then Bo Burnham, obviously huge for me, being, you know, kind of like a whimsical, theatery kind of guy who's also dipping his toes into comedy. That was when I found Bo on YouTube in the early days. I was like, yep, this speaks to my soul for sure. But yeah, those were probably the big ones up in there.
yeah. And then in terms of the like movies and TV shows that influence you, like what kind of content would you love to create besides the next SNL?
Well, sure. I mean, I don't care to create the next SNL. I'd love to be on SNL. Hi, Lorne
Hi,
Michaels. I
Lauren.
want to be on it. Oh my God, oh my, what was that kid's name? You know who I'm talking about, the one flash in the pan TikTok guy who made that. I want to be the next SNL cast member.
I don't know. I
The
know Yodel
poor,
Boy.
the poor guy. He was just doing what he did. And then he deleted his account, I think. Jake Novak.
Not BJ. Okay.
No, not BJ. Yeah, I mean, like obviously, yeah, SNL. I that's a massive goal for anybody who does comedy. But I definitely want to make movies that make people laugh, but also make people feel things and think about their own feelings and think about their relationships. I definitely want to make movies that are just silly for the sake of being silly, but I also want to make people feel things. My goal in every single art craft that I participate in is there's this really sappy thing that I always come back to. So basically there's this really, really nice type of violin. I think it's called a virtuoso violin. It's
I
like
thought
the
you were
best
gonna do the
violin in
joke
the
that Big
world.
Dog one time got me with.
No, what's this? What's this joke?
He was like, "What's that thing called? Like the violin, but it's like the Irish one." And I'm like, "A fiddle." And it's like, "Fiddle these nuts."
That's a great one. I'm
I was
gonna
like,
let him walk into that with me. I'm
yeah.
gonna set him up for that.
Yeah.
But no. So it's this isn't a balls joke. It's we're getting deep here. So it's a virtuoso violin. It's the best violin in the world. And basically, like if you were to set regular violins across the room from the virtuoso violin, and then you were to play a G on the virtuoso violin, it is such a pure sound coming off of the virtuoso violin that it makes the other violins across the room hum a G. And that is how I feel about all of the art that I create. I want to so clearly resonate my feelings in my art that it makes other people feel those feelings. So no matter what I do, whether it's being wacky and silly and doing like a Billy Madison style comedy, or doing something with a little bit more heart that really makes you kind of think about what's going on in your life and your relationships. Either way, I just want to make stuff that makes people feel things.
Yeah. And then I know for me, like it's important to show up and create stories that I didn't have. I know we've talked about your Jewish identity, mental health stuff. Like, is that important for you to showcase like the future generations? Like, you want like the next Jordan who may not be from Jersey, who might just be like from Bumblefuck, Iowa. That's just like this Jewish kid. Like, you want them to feel representation on screen if they don't have it in their community.
100%. I mean, I want to give representation to as many people as I can give representation to. And that definitely includes being Jewish. It includes dealing with depression and anxiety, things that I've struggled with throughout my life. I think that it's important that society talks about them. It's important that media portrays them in a way that isn't inherently negative or overwhelming, and that it shows that people can deal with these things instead of kind of like needing to feel like they have no other choice in how to deal with it. But especially for men, I think it's really important to show people dealing with their emotions. There's definitely the generation or two generations above ours and every generation before us. It's just like we've gotten incrementally better and better about talking about mental health, but I feel like men definitely open up to it a lot slower. And so the big form of representation that I would like to give to people who maybe feel the same way that I do is definitely mental health, but it's also feeling comfortable in being silly and being open and being a little bit flamboyant sometimes, and knowing that that is an okay thing to do because it makes you happy and it feels good.
For sure. And I mean, I was gonna tell you this off air, but like for me, you're actually someone that's been very important for me to meet, like in terms of my own confidence in identity, because like, I don't know, even though like you're straight and I'm bi, like I've always struggled with like feeling comfortable with my masculinity and like being a little fruity. Like I'm not the most masculine presenting guy, like in terms of like my mannerisms. I like fruity drinks more than like necessarily like just knocking back beers. I like musical theater. I like Disney Channel movies, and like just like getting to know you, you've like boosted my own confidence. I'm like, there are people who I think are so cool, like Jordan, who are just like being him and like just like be yourself, and it's okay to be yourself. And I think that's like something, one of my favorite things about like meeting you was like, oh, I have felt a little bit more confident since getting to know you, and like just even like asking you some questions like about like what's it like to like the discussion that we've had a couple times about like flirting versus rhythm, that like conversation like that like was something small that I was like, oh, it's just like you can flirt with anyone. It's just like you just have to like have the confidence to do it. And I just like I have felt like the 9 months since I've known you. I feel like I have grown into a better version of myself just having met you, being your friend. And I appreciate getting to know you, especially like I think like you're a couple years older than me, so you have a little bit more wisdom to impart on me. So I appreciate.
Sure. I mean, look, in the grand scheme of things, we're all just blips on blips on blips on blips. But that is so sweet of you to say, and I'm so appreciative that I've been able to impact you in this positive way. I definitely didn't always have people who were telling me that it was okay to be flamboyant but also masculine at the same time, and to kind of mix the feminine with the masculine energy. And so the fact that I can share that with somebody and it resonates with them, that's it. That's why I do this. Obviously there's a self-aggrandizing part of all of this, and I do it for myself, but for the part that I give out into the world, it's that right there. So it's really incredible that you just shared that, and I really
and that's just like you going about your day, bopping along in your life, and like you probably didn't maybe not have even realized like that like it meant a little bit to me.
I didn't, and I'm really, like I said, I'm really glad that you shared that with me, because that's super powerful, and that makes me feel very, very happy and appreciative to you for sharing that with me.
Of other people out there that you can inspire with your stories.
I hope so.
As we wind things down, you are a podcaster yourself. What is your fascination with true crime? Because like I know the story, but like what's your experience with true crime? I think it's so fascinating.
I think so like I don't really have a fascination with true crime. I like history. And history obviously overlaps with true crime often. But I just kind of fell backwards into the true crime world. I started out just doing voiceover on a true crime reenactment podcast called The Original Dead Time Stories. That's a wonderful, wonderful reenactment podcast created by and directed and usually written by the incredible Skylar Fasteneau. And he brought me in for one episode, and then I just kind of kept coming back. And it's so fun because I get to do one of the things that I love about voice acting, which we didn't even really talk about, cartoons, which is wild. But Mel Blanc was such a massive influence for me. And then the other Mel Brooks, also huge. But what I loved about Mel Blanc,
we don't talk about the third one.
No, we don't talk about the third one. No, he wouldn't like the first two. So one of the things I loved about Mel Blanc was that he could do multiple voices. And so when I started doing Dead Time Stories, I started playing multiple characters all in the same episode. And that was kind of like a cross off the bucket list for me creatively, where I got to do scenes opposite myself, which was a fun creative challenge. And then from there, Skylar and his incredible husband, Daniel Jones, who produces those shows, asked if I had any ideas for shows. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, does it have to be true crime related? They're like, yeah, that's our brand. And I was like, oh, okay. Let me think about that. And then I came back to them with this really fun game show called True Crime, False Crime, which is just kind of like, it's just me being like a little devious. And so I get to have fun interactions with people. I get to play a little game, and it's basically just, I tell you about a true crime, but it's not necessarily always true. Sometimes I made it up. And so you have to kind of figure out if it's true or not. And
so you get to flex those creative muscles, come up with some fake true crimes.
Exactly. Yeah. Do a little bit of writing.
Get to be behind a mic, practice your voice performance, even if it's not acting. Like on stage persona. I mean, for me, like one of the first like people that I saw that I was like dream job, Ryan Seacrest hosting American Idol. I was like, I want to do this. Like, I would love to be a game show host.
It wasn't Brian Dunkelman that did that for you. It was Ryan Seacrest.
I didn't watch that season. No, but like I think Jeff Probst has like Julie Chen, like these people have like such cool jobs. They get to like host reality TV. Like
it's a really unique skill set to do.
Steve Harvey, legend. I think Keke Palmer needs to be the next host of Family Feud, though.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Unless it's me or you, obviously.
Well, sure. Yeah, of course. On the hosting front, Joel McHale, when he did the Soup, that was also really, really big for me.
Yeah. Is Conan O'Brien at all an inspiration for you at all? No, not really.
There was not really. It was like there was some kind of there was some kind of barrier there that like I didn't really get into him until much later, until he was kind of out of the late night game. It was really his last season that I was like, okay, maybe I'll start checking in on this. And like everything I've seen since then is wonderful. And like I didn't know it, but I was enjoying Conan, whether it was through his writing on SNL or through his writing on The Simpsons. I was enjoying his comedy, but I just like, for some reason with him on camera, I had a hard time getting there, but obviously now I love it.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? Any podcasts that influence you? Any like game shows that we didn't discuss? Like there's so much other stuff that we could probably dig deep in.
Game shows didn't really inspire me. I mean, I liked Jeopardy. I liked Jeopardy because I liked White Men Can't Jump. That was why I liked Jeopardy, because I was like, oh yeah,
the original, not this new trash with Jack Harlow, right?
Look, as I said before, I'm not too mad at it. It's not.
I just have
not
one sided beef with Jack Harlow.
Well, I'm not mad at it. It's a silly movie. That's not incredible, but I'm not mad at it. But yeah, game shows didn't really do anything for me that much. What was the other thing you said?
Podcasts. What we're on.
Podcasts. Yeah. Oh, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
This was a good warm up. We should start the podcast now.
Right.
But I think Armchair Expert definitely really, really cool to hear kind of those behind the scenes stories. There's a Vulture podcast called Good One. And it's about stand-up comedy. And so they bring on a comic every episode and they play a joke from earlier in their career. And then we hear what made the comic think of that joke, how that joke changed over the years, how they learned and grew through doing those jokes. And so like it shows the behind the scenes of stand-up that you don't see.
I might start listening to that. Not
that
I have much time to add another podcast to my plate, but
that's the thing with podcasts is I only really listen to them during passive times, like driving or walking. And so like I slowly crawl through them. But then these days it's Fly on the Wall with David Spade and Dana Carvey, because it's an SNL podcast. You literally, you're getting behind the scenes stories.
Are you going to watch the new David Spade show, Snake Oil?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I had something that you referenced that I wanted to circle back to, but I do not remember what I was going to ask. So that's why usually I was writing stuff down, but I was not paying attention in that moment. So
yeah, well, sometimes you're just too busy having fun with friends,
right? In the moment. So we have talked a lot about a lot of different things. Is there anything else you want to? Oh, this is a very far callback from earlier in the podcast. Isla Fisher, you mentioned her. One of my favorite movies of all time, Scooby-Doo, because she was Mary Jane. And we have to reference that. But great movie. Is that a stupid comedy that you enjoy? Like these like...
100%. And like, again, like the Hanna-Barbera characters were really, really big for me. And so that was an adaptation that I was like all on board with. So happy with the cast. The execution, like Scooby in live action was great. Matthew Lillard, oh my God, an incredible Shaggy.
So they said that he became the voice of Shaggy for many years until like he quit.
Yeah. Well, quit. I don't know. I've heard a couple different renditions of how that story happened. But that's another one. Another thing that we were talking about earlier when people do multiple movies together. Him and Freddie Prinze Jr. Did Summer Catch together, and with Jessica Biel. Which like, oh my God, it was such a perfect like early 2000s movie. But yeah, Scooby-Doo was absolutely massive. Did you ever watch Scooby's Wacky Races?
I haven't, but I saw The Reluctant Werewolf where they're basically in a wacky race. The whole Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf.
So I think that came just after Wacky Races or just before Wacky Races. But Wacky Races is basically
there was like, I know Wacky Races the show. Are you talking about a specific Scooby-Doo like crossover episode or?
No. I think like it was just. I thought it was called Scooby-Doo's Wacky Races. But it might have just been called Wacky Races. But it was like all the Hanna-Barbera characters all like racing. It was just a parody of The Great Race.
See, because there was the Reluctant Werewolf, which is like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy have to do a race, otherwise Shaggy's going to be a werewolf forever. Is
Shaggy wearing a red shirt in that one?
Yeah, red shirt Shaggy.
Yeah.
With this one.
I saw a TikTok one time about like why that happens, and it was like I think it was like if it wasn't produced by Hanna-Barbera, he was wearing the red shirt because like they didn't have the rights to like make him wear his iconic clothing.
All right, so there's Scooby-Doo meets the Wacky Races, so that's probably what you're talking about.
That's probably yeah. But yeah, all those Hanna-Barbera characters were so big for
Magilla
me.
Gorilla.
Of course.
Yes.
Pink Panther.
Pink Panther.
Quick Draw McGraw.
There's also Fred Flintstone, George Jetson.
Oh, of course, yeah. Flintstones and Jetsons were massive for me. And then what's his face? Oh, he was a dog and he knew kung fu. Kung fu. What was it? I can't believe I can't remember this character's name.
Crypto the Super Dog? No.
Well, of course, Crypto, but that's a whole different can of worms. I can't believe I'm
trying to look this up.
Dog who knew kung fu. He wore like a red robe.
Hong Kong Phooey.
Yes, Hong Kong Phooey, #1 super dog. Yeah. That was Hong Kong Phooey was always really fun.
I feel like all of a sudden I want to talk about Monsters Inc. because I feel like is Billy Crystal and John Goodman any like inspirations for you?
Absolutely, yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy Crystal is again just like a comedy force. Him and Robin Williams bring a similar energy, and definitely Robin has more of an impact on me. But I mean, everything Billy Crystal touches is absolute gold. And then John Goodman, I mean, also incredible. I loved the live action Flintstones as a kid.
That's why
Speed Racer a little bit later was super fun. But he's in one of my top 3 favorite movies of all time, Big Lebowski, which is I'm such a big Coen Brothers fan, and that movie is I think close to a perfect story about nothing.
Nice, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. One of my favorite Billy Crystal movies is the one I forget what it's called, but it's like he's the grandpa, and the grandpa and the grandma take care of the grandkids, and there's a kangaroo like imaginary friend named Carl. I will look this up and text it to you.
Yeah, please do. This doesn't else.
Carl the kangaroo. Let's see this. Parental Guidance. I saw it on a plane and I cried.
I don't know.
Really good. Anyways, let's start winding things down. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest? Anything else you want to talk about? And then if there is, feel free to share that. But then afterwards, give us some pop culture plugs, something that you think everyone should check out. And then, of course, your Jordan Katcher plugs. Where can people keep up with you, see what you're up to?
Of course. No, I think we've covered a lot of the media that made me. I think we've definitely gone over a lot of it, and it's been such a blast talking about all this stuff. And as you said earlier in the podcast, this is what you and I talk about when we're at work anyway. It's just this kind of stuff, and like how all of this stuff kind of forged who we are as people. And then pop culture plugs. I mean, if you're unfamiliar with any of the things that we talked about on this podcast, please go watch them. That's all
the best
wonderful.
Pop culture plug yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like everything that I would like tell somebody to watch is something that we talked about here.
Start with Don't Eat the Pictures and end with Parental Guidance.
100%. Yeah, that's how you go, A to Z. Definitely watch Robin Williams live at the Met, masterclass on stand-up comedy. There's a lot of pop culture from the era, but even if you don't know the pop culture stories, it's still just incredible comedy. Watch Big Lebowski. Not that I have to plug Coen Brothers movies for them, but like go, it's incredible. Watch Mel Brooks movies. We didn't really talk about them a lot, but Blazing Saddles is a near perfect comedy. Young Frankenstein is incredible. No small part to do with Mel Brooks or Gene Wilder together. That combination is legendary.
Yeah. And then where can people keep up with you? Where do you want them to follow you, if anywhere?
They can follow me on all the socials. You could search my name, Jordan Katcher, Katcher. On Instagram, I'm What's the Catch with a K. But TikTok, I'm just Jordan Katcher. And you can follow me on all those. I do silly sketches. I do funny characters. I do some impressions. And you can always check out the original Dead Time Stories podcast. You can check out True Crime, False Crime, my other podcast, The Aftermath, with the hilarious Ryan Pig. And sometimes I do stand-up comedy. So keep your eyes peeled for those socials, and maybe you'll get some dates on there.
Fun. Quickly, before I drop off, my plugs for the week. We did a High School Musical, the musical series pod that's in your feed, talking about season 4 with my friend Sam. Mostly negative reviews, but we had some fun. We talked some positive. We also reviewed Olivia Rodrigo's Guts, which is the highlight of the episode. Did some episodes of Media Made Me. Lonnie Dangerous is in your feed. Dahlia Black is going to be in your feed. A couple others that we have in the hopper, but still need to be recorded. Of course, check out the back catalog of all the Brazilian Dragon podcast content that we have. Follow us at Brazil Dragon Pod. Currently, that's our Instagram page. And then in terms of stand-up, I have a show on October 1st at Flappers in Burbank, 5 p.m. if you want to come check that out. Jordan and I got to perform a stand-up show together. I think Jeremy's trying to produce something. So we'll
nice.
collab with Jeremy. But yeah, Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today here.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, I had a great time.
Well, the collective, we and all of the Brazilian Dragon network of listeners.
Thank you. Yeah. And also one more pop culture plug, September 27th at 8 p.m. on CBS. Go support Brandon Donlin, my friend, living out his childhood dream on the 45th season of Survivor. So that's
so cool. So awesome.
Yeah, so proud of him. But with that said, you can follow me at With the Felipe. And until next time, everyone, obrigadero for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.